Ladies and gentlemen, the end is nigh, and what I mean by that is the end of Season 5 is right around the corner, literally in a couple of days. And what I like to do at the end of every single season is give you the lowdown of what is going on with the story so far in Warzone, in Modern Warfare, and it actually all ties together, not just the campaign, not just Warzone, but also multiplayer, Spec Ops. It all ties in to one overall story. So what I like to do at the end of every season is break down the entire story so far, starting at the very beginning with the campaign and going all of the way today until Season 6. Now, the interesting thing about this one is it appears as though Season 6 may be the last season until this transfers over into Black Ops Cold War. But on top of that, it appears as though the Cold War story is going to tie in to the Modern Warfare story, which tells us that this story may continue. So ladies and gentlemen, what I give to you today is the full story of Modern Warfare so far, Season 1 to Season 6.
This is for my family. This is for Hadir.
So I no longer look at the campaign of Modern Warfare as the main story of Modern Warfare. I actually look at it as more of a prologue to everything that happened afterwards. You see, with the death of Roman Barkov at the very end of Modern Warfare, that sparked the beginning of a totally new power vacuum within Russia and the rest of the story of Modern Warfare. And with this, we see a new bad guy take over.
Нет! Нет! Умоляю! Пожалуйста!
So this really is where the story of Verdansk and Warzone truly begin, is after the campaign of Modern Warfare. But what's interesting about this is, at this point, Warzone still isn't released, so this story is continued through Spec Ops. Now, at the very beginning, the response to Khalid al-Assad is a joining of forces between the Allegiance and Coalition. This is called Armistice, and in this, their job is to take out a mysterious new person known as Mr. Z, who is working alongside Khalid al-Assad, which I still fully believe is Hadir, and I've made a video on that. I won't dive into it in this one, but I have a feeling we might find out a little bit more about this once Farah is added in Season 6, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So essentially, our story in Season 0, we'll call it, is Al-Qatala has invaded Verdansk with the help of Mr. Z and his weapon smuggling, and now an army called Armistice is formed to actually fight them. This is when we get to the beginning of Season 1.
Q helo in my sights.
Take it down.
Roger. Stand by. Target destroyed.
General Alliance, this is Mara. AQ helo down north of my position.
Copy. Get in there. Confirm enemy KIA.
Raj, on the move.
So after watching this cutscene from Season 1 now, what I've realized is alone, this cutscene makes zero sense. It introduces a new Allegiance and Coalition operator who are fighting against each other, who should be working together both as a part of Armistice. And then at the very end of this little trailer, we then see the camera zoom out, the helicopter that they shot down with some sort of gas inside of it, and Khalid al-Assad inside of broadcast, a map that currently isn't part of the game during Season 1, saying it's okay that they did this, they have plenty more gas. All of this doesn't make any sense, and that's because this is not a trailer for Season 1, this is actually a teaser for Warzone. And on top of that, a teaser for the rest of the story to come revolving around Warzone. And where it starts to make sense is in Season 2. So what we start to see in the Season 2 cutscene is that there are more and more Armistice soldiers fighting against each other, and we don't know why. That is when Ghost comes in. As a trusted soldier and member of Task Force 141, he says this to Captain Price.
Price, something's wrong in Verdansk. They're targeting their own. We need to find out why. Send fighters I can trust. Ghost out.
Now at this point, once again, Warzone's still not released, but at the end of this cutscene, we see a C-130, the whole of Verdansk, soldiers jumping out of it, and obviously this was our first introduction to Warzone. And halfway through Season 2 is when Warzone was released, and the story started to get pieced together with the beginning of Season 3.
Simon,
Price,
can you talk?
I can listen.
Zakhaev's plan is working. The armistice in Verdansk is officially fallen. It's bloody chaos.
Tell me something I don't know.
So in Season 3, we hear for the first time that Zakhaev's plan was to make Armistice fall. Now, keep in mind, at this point, we don't know how exactly he pulled off that plan, how exactly he tore Armistice apart, but we know it involved getting them to fight against each other like we saw in the previous seasons, Season 1 and Season 2. And at this point, the end of Season 3, Alex gets added in as another member of seemingly Task Force 141 to work alongside Ghost and figure out what exactly is going on in Verdansk. Now, the cutscene for Season 4 is interesting because it's actually a summary of everything we've heard so far. And of course, it introduces Big Daddy Price.
This is Viktor Zakhaev. His father was a Soviet-era hero who wanted a world war he never got. So Viktor found a willing partner to fulfill his father's wishes. Al-Assad had an axe to grind against the superpowers. He was free, armed, and turned loose. The coalition and allegiance forces signed treaties and sent in their best to restore order. But Zakhaev pulled strings, sowed distrust, and divided. We turned our guns back on each other, just like he wanted. Intel says there's still a hidden world here, and plans to use it. It's a bloody powder keg. And Zakhaev's already lit the fuse.
Let's get it done, yeah?
Bravo 6. Going down.
That father-son relationship between Viktor Zakhaev and Imran is actually further fleshed out within Season 5, so we'll get to that. But as far as the rest of that cutscene, they do a pretty good job of summarizing everything that we just talked about. Armistice falling, what is going on, and why Price is being brought in to take care of the Zakhaevs and Khalid al-Assad. Now, the other part of the story that was added in Season 4 is intel missions, and these are literally only story, and I really enjoy them. Now, the very first intel mission goes over the very beginning of how the Verdansk war essentially started, and how basically broadcast warned people to leave, and eventually this led to the crashing of a plane. And by the end of this, we see information about the airport attack, which we later find out was actually an attack brought forth by Armistice soldiers, which is interesting and indicates the original fall of Armistice as a whole. And it tells us that that was right from the very beginning that Armistice was falling apart. The rest of the intel from Season 4 is basically explaining to us how Zakhaev actually tore Armistice apart. And it essentially comes down to one important intel piece. Money. He was essentially paying off Armistice soldiers to look the other way and even fight against further Armistice soldiers. And that is how he tore Armistice apart. Relatively straightforward. And this brings us to Season 5 in the introduction of Shadow Company.
Visual on the stadium. Time to target 30 seconds. Copy. All shadows this net. Listen up. In the last 24.
Allegiance intercepted comms traffic coming from the stadium. Source of that chatter may be Viktor Zakhaev himself. We roll this bastard up, there'll be bonuses all around. Stand by.
Lurch to Rose. You ready to start this fire?
Always. You know that.
That's what I like to hear. How about some fireworks?
Wait till you hear this. Fuse is lit. Let's let ourselves in.
Copy. Spark it.
Good effect on target, Shadows. Doors open, bring in the birds.
Check, HLZ is marked, touching down. Shadows, unask and move to set.
You see hostile intent? You are clear to engage.
So at the beginning of Season 5, I really thought Shadow Company was going to play a bigger part in the Warzone story moving forward, especially with that piece of intel with people being paid off and Shadow Company being paid mercenaries. I thought they were going to be brought in by Zakhaev, and as of right now, that is yet to happen. That story never really came through. However, the majority of the story in Season 5 of Warzone is actually in the intel missions. Essentially, there are 3 different types of story in the intel. The first of which is about Arm 3-1, and by the end of the first set of intel, he is located inside of the Gulag. Fast forward to the second set of intel. In this intel, you find out about Arm 3-1's escape, and somehow you find notes about Adler and Perseus, 2 of the main characters of Black Ops Cold War. And all of a sudden, we see this crossover between the new Modern Warfare universe and the entire Black Ops universe. I have a separate video on that if you guys want to check it out. But by the end of this intel called Old Wounds, we find out that Arm 3-1 has escaped from the Gulag and is now gone. We basically figured that Arm 3-1 is Frank Woods, hence right around this time Woods was added into the game as a pre-order bonus for Black Ops Cold War. Now that is the end of the first storyline. The second one comes in with Sins of the Father. Essentially, this is about the relationship between Imran Zakhaev and Viktor Zakhaev, and the one piece of intel that really matters is this one right here. It's a letter written to Viktor Zakhaev from Imran Zakhaev, talking about his morals, why he does what he does, and how he needs to stand up for Russia, just like his father did, in other words, Imran Zakhaev. This kind of further pushes forward him to pursue his overarching plan. But this is where the third storyline comes in. What is the overarching plan of the Zakhaevs? And this is where the final set of intel for Season 5 comes in. Once again, in this intel, we see information about Adler and Perseus, and directly relating back to the Cold War. How Adler was hunting Perseus, he was getting close to something big, and he was tracking them to the dam in Verdansk. What we find out through several pieces of intel is that through the monument close to Bunker 10, power was being rerouted to Bunker 10, as we were seeing here. Why? That is, of course, the big-ass nuke inside of bunker number 10. And thus, we come to Season 6.
Captain's intel was good.
Always is.
Zakhaev and his men have been using these tunnels to move through Verdansk unnoticed.
He had the tunnels but no trains. Can you power them?
If you buy me some time, yes.
3 enemies heading your way, Nick.
Then keep them out.
Now, there are a few interesting things about this. First of all, in this trailer, they are showing us that they are powering up these metro stations underneath Verdansk. They are tunnels that Al-Qatala soldiers would use, and now we are turning on the subway system underneath so that we'll be able to use them to get around Verdansk. Now, we know because Treyarch told us that Cold War is going to pick up Warzone at the climax of the Modern Warfare story. Now, we don't currently know how that's going to happen, but my guess would be it would be something to do with that nuke that we mentioned before. Yet, in this trailer for Season 6, there's no mention of that nuke. Not to mention that Season 6 is most likely the final season before Black Ops Cold War, because we're less than 2 months away from the release of that. So we should be getting that climax that Treyarch talked about somewhere within Season 6. But from everything that we are seeing in this trailer, the big thing that is being added this season is the subway stations. And it's going to be interesting to see how this works in with the nuke and with that overall story. What I will say is I did discuss yesterday how this metro station could somehow have to do with the various different bunkers and the nuke. So if you haven't checked out that video, feel free to do so. But for now, this is all we know, and this is where the story is going forward in Season 6. So let me know what you think down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, it's always appreciated if you hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, peace out.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're